think it needs a major comprehensive overhaul. So we need to, one of the biggest things is what to do with people who are in the country who don't have legal status and for whom it's impossible right now for them to get legal status. And that's a very controversial issue. But we are basically saying that the only realistic way to deal with that and the way that is going to be best for our country is to find a way to create a path to legalization and eventually to citizenship for these people who've been living in our country for in some cases for many years, for decades, and who are contributing to our country and who are our neighbors, our friends, and where it would be a horrendous thought to imagine sort of uprooting millions of people who have who already have laid down roots here and have families here and who are part of our communities.
The current immigration laws affect immigrants in the United States in a terrible way. They live in a state of fear often. They're terrified of deportation. Fortunately, in New York City, we don't see immigration agents, barging into people's homes for the most part and taking them to detention facilities and subjecting them to deportation. But that happens all over the country. So immigrants, hardworking immigrants who don't have legal status or whose family members don't have legal status are really in a situation of fear and sometimes even terror. And to me, that's completely unacceptable. I mean, we've had situations where U.S. citizen children have watched their undocumented immigrant parents get deported back to their home countries, where undocumented immigrants who have had minor brushes with the law have been deported to countries they've never known. We had a case where one of our clients, who was an undocumented woman from Mexico who really grew up in New York City, was as much a New Yorker as any of us, was persuaded by her abusive boyfriend, who was the father of her child, to come to China. And while she was in China, he abducted her little girl. And then she couldn't come back into the country to try to pursue reunion with her child. Actually, the child is in China, but she needed to come back into the country to get a custody order and couldn't do that. So in so many ways, we see immigrants, undocumented people who are living here being treated in very punitive ways. I mean, we have very harsh immigration laws in this country, very punitive laws that were actually, most of them were passed. It was part of a broad immigration reform that took place in the mid-90s, and I have to put the word reform in quotes, under then President Bill Clinton. And they made for very harsh penalties for immigrants. For example, if an immigrant comes into the country and their their legal status expires, let's say they come in on a visa, and they overstay their visa and they then leave the country, they are barred from entering the country for a certain period of time, from 3 to 10 years. And that has created a big problem for a number of our immigrant clients. For example, we've had several cases where our immigrant clients have needed to leave the country for safety purposes. In 2 of our cases, the clients were encouraged by advocates to go to Canada to stay with family members for safety reasons. Because the women's status, immigration status, had expired while they were in the United States, they are now barred from coming back into the country, even though they have children who now are unable to have any form of contact with their abusive partners. Now, some might say, well, isn't that a good thing? Isn't it better that the women be safe than their children have contact with the men who abused them? But the laws, especially family law, there's a strong predisposition towards non-custodial parents having regular visitation with their children, even if there's been domestic violence. So in both instances, these women were threatened with loss of custody because they were unable to come back into the country as a result of punitive immigration laws.
I don't feel we should send them back home because they're here for a reason. We are the land of opportunity, and not everyone is as fortunate as us. We quick to say send them back home, but then we have people like Angela Jolie and Oprah who goes over there and helps and all that stuff. We can't just send them back home. I think we should make it, kind of bend the rules, but everything to me goes according to circumstance. It has to be, if they're here trying to gain something. Not just here because they're, want to do nothing, make a whole lot of babies and things like that. They're here for education. They're here to work. They're adding something to our population. They're not just taking. I feel it's negative. It's negative. It's embarrassing to whoever it's happening to. And the Mexicans that I knew of down there, they weren't hurting nobody, and they were living in harsh condition. There could be 24 of them in a one-bedroom house, and they're all just here working for. Sometimes I heard $3.15 an hour and things like that. So if they're here with nothing and they left home from nothing, what are you sending them back to?
So you think that they should just be provided, I guess, an opportunity to make
Yes,
themselves
an opportunity, not a handout, but an opportunity.
So what's the difference between a handout and an opportunity?
A handout will be I feel like a handout is just let them come here and just be here. I feel an opportunity, you set in stipulations. They have to be doing certain things. It has to be certain reasons. Like if you're here working and you're not causing any damage to the society or the neighborhood you're working in. You have a family that's here, because a lot of them come here and they make babies and things like that. It has to be a reason why you're here. You're not just here for no reason.
No, I don't think it's fair for people to come into this country illegally. No way.
I think the government needs to do a tremendous amount of reform and educate other citizens of this country who have recently received documentation that they need to protect this country by working equally as hard and following the rules of the country and not taking advantage of what the government has to offer.